Blade Runner 2049 is the highly anticipated sequel to the critically acclaimed 1982 cult classic from Ridley Scott. Set in a grim analog dystopian future where corporations are king and artificial human beings known as replicants walk among us, serving humanity by doing jobs considered too dangerous or too dirty for humans. Set 30 years after the original movie, all of the old replicants manufactured by the Tyrell Corporation have been branded illegal and have been replaced by new Wallace Corporation models, which lack any form of free will and therefore are considered safe. The old Nexus replicants are hunted by special law enforcement units known as Blade Runners. The story follows a Blade Runner who goes by the name of Kay, played by Ryan Gosling, who is tasked with tracking down any old model replicants and retiring them. His investigations lead him down a breadcrumb trail that causes him to start asking questions about his own past and eventually lands him on the doorstep of the original movie's protagonist Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford. Blade Runner 2049 has big shoes to fill, but is it capable of replicating the success of the original movie? Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I feel that we should mention that Blade Runner 2049 has fallen victim to a growing trend that has started appearing in movies recently that comes in the form of multi-format media. By this I'm referring to the short films released on YouTube that the main plot will be hard to get a full understanding of if you have not seen. So before you watch this movie, it's highly recommended that you watch the anime short Blackout 2022, as well as the two short films 2036 Nexus Dawn and 2048 Nowhere to Run. Links in the description down below. The first thing that anybody who can see straight will tell you about Blade Runner 2049 is that it's visually stunning, and of that you'll get no argument here. The recreation of Ridley Scott's vision of the future has definitely been given a lot of care to detail, and you can tell director Denis Villeneuve really wants to do the original movie justice. As you see cars flying through stormy cities, passing neon Atari signs and holograms advertising all manner of products, it's hard not to feel nostalgic. At times we felt like it tried too hard to induce this feeling of nostalgia, and more than once we felt like it tried to force its artiness down our throat with prolonged panoramic shots. It's not to say that these shots are not impressive, it's just that it seemed to prolong an already considerably lengthy cinematic experience. Our experience with the audio of this film was not so positive, however. Although still managing to pay tribute to the original score, the audio levels seemed out, and the volume was piercingly loud to the point of discomfort and at times seemed to drown out the dialogue. This may have been the theatre's fault, but without watching the movie again at a different theatre, there's no way to tell, and as this review is a recounting of our experience of the movie, it definitely dampened the mood and I feel that it's worth mentioning. Sometimes the soundtrack is perfect, with more than enough tribute paid to Vangelis's score from 1982, but other times it felt a bit too random and sounded like someone was face-rolling a Casio keyboard. The one thing in this movie that was flawless was the acting. At no point were we not convinced by the cast that this was indeed 2049 and the world was not in a good place. Outstanding performances by Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford, as well as a pleasant surprise in the form of Ana de Armas, who plays Joy, Officer K's AI companion and virtual housewife. And the award for creepiest eccentric billionaire goes to Neander Wallace, played by Jared Leto, whose god complex and ambition are matched only by his ego and bank account. Stellar performances all round, and it was nice to see a few old faces from the original, but we won't spoil that for you. So to summarise, the pacing for Blade Runner 2049 is very slow, and if you're looking for an action blockbuster, you'll be sorely disappointed. Much like Villeneuve's other work, this movie is really cerebral, and it may take a while after viewing to mentally digest it all. In fact, straight out of the cinema, neither Derp or myself particularly loved it, but after letting the dust settle, we kind of want to watch it again. The writing is simple, but subtle, and thankfully not too obvious. The only thing we maintain an issue with is Deckard's involvement. Harrison Ford's character doesn't make an appearance until 3/4 of the way through the movie, and I kind of felt it hijacked Kay's story, which had me intrigued up until that point. Also, without directly saying so, the movie seems to want to answer the biggest question from 1982's Blade Runner: is Deckard a replicant? Which I think is better left to the viewer to decide. So the Worth It Dude's final score for Blade Runner 2049 is 7 out of 10. A very good movie that would have been better with fewer art house shots, but overall an honourable sequel to what is arguably the most influential sci-fi movie of all time.